Hello, my name is Ron Schaffner. I want to start by saying thank you for this opportunity to talk about AAA outsourcing capabilities and talent in the Philippines. I am the founder and president of Secret Six, and I'm based in San Francisco, California. I've been in the game industry for about 20 years. I spent much of that time working in business development at Sony PlayStation, working on many non-gaming relationships. Next month, Secret Six is celebrating its 15th anniversary. The company started as a 3D art outsourcing studio at a time when PS2 was transitioning to PS3. Optical media was changing from DVD to Blu-ray disc, and television was going from standard definition to HD TV. I saw this transition as an opportunity to build an art outsourcing business focused on games. When we started Secret Six, there were very few outsourcing companies dedicated to games. Most of the early service providers were in China, India, or Vietnam. I chose to set up in the Philippines for several reasons. First, the country has a long history of art services. I remember when I was a kid watching Flintstones on television, and at the end of every episode, I remember the credits always showing Phil cartoons. I later learned that Phil Cartoons was a huge DVD animation company back in the day when animation was all hand-drawn. Knowing that, I knew that there must be a talent pool of artistic people in the Philippines. Perhaps this should have been first, but I have family ties to the country, so my initial goal was to set up a business there, and then I thought about what type of business made sense. With my familiarity of the Philippines, I also knew that there was a high level of English fluency, but there's also a very strong attachment to Western culture, including games, movies, sports, television, and music. So when artists in the Philippines are working with overseas clients, it's very likely that they are already very familiar with any references provided by clients, as both sides are watching the same movies and playing the same games. Even though PlayStation wasn't officially supported in the Philippines 15 years ago, there was a very strong following of PlayStation 2. Lastly, I knew that if I formed a team of artists in the Philippines working on games, the team would put in the effort to learn whatever is necessary to do the work. By nature, I know that the team would be adaptable to whatever challenges would be thrown at them. As a recent example, this was demonstrated through the team's transition to working from home. For 14 years, we never worked from home. Yet when COVID-19 was threatening business shutdowns in March of this year, the team already had a migration plan in place. And when the call to vacate the offices was made by the government, the team flawlessly executed the transition and have continued on with production from home without losing a step. Back 15 years ago when we set up in the Philippines, we were one of probably 3 small companies that were starting to build art outsourcing studios. There wasn't much of a game development industry either. But also, just like on the art side, there were a few small teams of passionate people, mostly programmers, trying to jumpstart the industry in their country. For us, the key was to learn the next-gen pipeline, how to build game assets for PlayStation 3. Through hard work, determination, and tapping industry contacts, we were able to do it. From the start, I knew that the future depended on developing a talent pool, building a client base, and forming a community. We formed a development community by gathering the various startups who all saw the benefits of collaboration. After all, we were not competing with each other, but faced the common threats and problems of being in a country that was not internationally recognized for game development, being in a country with little to no government support, and having local schools without curriculum to support our potential growth. In 2007, Secret Six, along with 7 other local companies, formed the Game Developer Association of the Philippines, also known as GDAP. Now there are over 20 member companies, plus academic partners that are part of GDAP. There are certainly many more than 20 game companies in the Philippines today, but these are either under the radar or don't find GDAP membership important. However, the forming and successful evangelization by GDAP certainly helped establish the Philippine game industry. We worked on developing talent by building deep relationships with the local universities and supporting efforts to create curriculum for game development degrees. Our partnerships today are with the top educational providers in the country, including De La Salle College of St. Benilde, Asia Pacific College, FEU, Ateneo de Manila, and iAcademy. I mention these schools because they all provide degrees related to game design and development, as well as courses for art and animation for games. Our partnerships with these schools and others that don't provide degrees in game development include internships or on-the-job training for students in their final academic year, game and portfolio reviews of student works, on-campus seminars and talks performed by our staff. In addition, we have many of our own industry professionals teaching at the local schools. On the business or client development side, we took advantage of the extensive population of Filipinos in the game industry outside the Philippines. There are many incredible Filipino artists working at all of the biggest studios worldwide, and not just in games, but also in movies and television. We successfully encouraged many of them to consider outsourcing to the Philippines, but we also triggered personal interest from those artists who would visit us whenever they returned to visit family in the Philippines. They would give talks to the team, providing advice and motivation. It really helped develop bonds between our artists and overseas companies. Over time, the positive experiences led to growth of even more development and outsourcing studios coming into the Philippines. These three separate efforts, creating a game development community, nurturing and partnering with academia to create a talent pool, and evangelizing the Philippines as a destination for game production, created the industry that we have today. However, this three-pronged approach would not have been successful without the strong work ethic, passion for gaming, incredible familiarity with Western culture, and willingness to learn demonstrated by all of those who entered and remained in the local game industry. Artists in the Philippines use all the industry standard tools, including Autodesk Maya, 3D Studio Max, Substance Designer and Painter, ZBrush, and all the others. They are familiar with Unity and Unreal Engine to optimize their art for games. Education is often self-driven by these artists and then further enhanced in university and through internships. Unfortunately, we cannot talk about all of our work, but some that I can mention that has appeared in recent AAA titles, including The Last of Us 2, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Rage 2, Just Cause 4, the Blood and Wine expansion pack of The Witcher, Medieval. There are certainly other studios in the Philippines contributing to many other AAA titles. In closing, it wasn't my intention for this to sound like a commercial for Secret 6. I can only share my personal experiences as well as our accomplishments and generalize about the industry and the country. I have witnessed incredible growth in AAA outsourcing in the Philippines over the past 15 years. And it's not just in creating art assets, but also in animation, development, QA, and live support for games. The growth came through a variety of factors, including multinational companies setting up studios in the Philippines, Phil-Ams wanting to connect their profession in the game industry to the Philippines, as well as many passionate local entrepreneurs seizing the growing opportunity of game development in their home country. When you get through pretty much any AAA game these days, chances are, if you take a look at the credits, you will find Filipino companies and artists contributing to the success of those titles. The last 15 years have been great, and I see continued growth going forward. Despite the challenges we all face with COVID-19, we remain fully booked but continue to expand. Thank you again for allowing me to talk about something so endearing to me. Have a great day ahead.